The haunted abandoned zoo of Los Angeles. The Los Angeles area is home to several parks, but one of the most populous is Griffith Park. You are likely to have a good time there if you have heard of the location, but have never been there before. You were likely unaware of the fact that it was formerly home to a zoo at one point in time. It was a site where a large number of people would go to view a wide variety of wild and exotic creatures on display. There is still a picnic area at the old zoo, and it is available for use during the daytime hours. The old zoo, on the other hand, can be a whole different animal of a different species. No pun meant, of course. It was said that the ghostly noises of animals in distress could be heard virtually every night, and there were tales that the building was haunted. This old zoo, which is located in one of the most popular parks in Los Angeles, is rumored to be haunted. During our conversation, we will discuss the old zoo and the legends that have been told about the possible hauntings that took place there. It is possible that by the time you have finished reading this, you will have already made plans to travel to the City of Angels to witness this for yourself. Hayride. In 1912, the first year that the Griffith Park Zoo opened its doors, there were a total of 15 species on show. At the time of its opening, it was the city's second zoo in its entire history. In the vicinity of 20 years ago, the East Lake Zoo in Los Angeles first opened its doors to the general public. Before the inauguration of the zoo, it was known as an ostrich farm, and it was reportedly owned by the park's founder, who, for some strange reason, was named Griffith J. Griffith before the zoo opened its doors. Soon after the beginning of the golden age of film and movies in Hollywood, animals began to make appearances in films themselves. It was reported that a film producer by the name of William Nicholas Selig sent creatures that had appeared in his films to the zoo after the filming of those films had concluded. The planned purpose of the donation was to kickstart the establishment of an animal theme park that would attract a greater number of guests. An enlargement project had been carried out at the zoo in the early 1930s as a part of the New Deal, which was being implemented at the time by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Caved enclosures with steel bars, which were more prevalent in zoos, were included in the zoo's exhibits. Even though it only received 2 million visitors annually, the zoo has frequently been subjected to criticism due to its relatively small size, particularly during periods in which the city of Los Angeles itself was in the process of expanding. In the late 1950s, the city had already approved a bond issue to construct a new zoo, which was estimated to carry a construction cost of more than $8 million. Eventually, the zoo would be built near Griffith Park, which is only 2 miles away. The new zoo opened its doors in 1966, 8 years after the previous one, which ultimately resulted in the closure of the zoo that was located in Griffith Park. A large number of picnic tables and benches were subsequently installed inside the enclosures for the use of park visitors. In addition to the fact that the former zoo continues to attract a certain number of people, it has also become a preferred location for filming for Hollywood. Beginning in the 1970s and continuing into the 1980s, the zoo would be featured in a variety of films and television shows, including Wonder Woman and Starsky and Hutch, amongst others. Even though the park is bustling with activity and visitors throughout the day, the old zoo continues to attract a significant number of visitors. However, the zoo itself has been the site of numerous spooky hauntings, particularly during the nighttime hours when there aren't as many people around. The zoo, and even Griffith Park itself, appear to be haunted, and this phenomenon appears to be quite prevalent. In addition, who better than the locals and others who visit the park regularly to recount the tales of such hauntings and the circumstances surrounding their occurrence? During the night, it was believed that some individuals would go through the park's ancient zoo and listen to the noises of the animals. It would appear that the sounds were more similar to the distress calls of animals that were being held captive. Taking into consideration the fact that the animals were confined in cages, the concerns that have been surrounding the zoo about maltreatment may have been discussed. During the nearly half-century that the zoo has been in operation, there had been no known instances of animal mistreatment, nor had there been any allegations of such abuse that had been brought to light. Many believe that the park itself may have been haunted due to a curse that was reported to have existed well over 150 years ago during the period in question. In the same way that every other significant park in a large city has been the subject of several murder investigations, Griffith Park has also been there. Throughout the years, various homicide investigations have been conducted as a result of the reports of murders or even the dumping of dead bodies in the park. Because of the park, a human skull was discovered on the grounds of the park, which was the subject of one of the most recent investigations. After some time, it was determined that the skull belonged to a female individual who was believed to have been in her early 20s while she was deceased. As of this day, neither the reason for the death nor the cause of death is known for certain. There may be a particular ghost that is still wandering around the park, attempting to figure out what is going on, even though there is possibly an uncountable number of spirits that are most likely hanging around there. At one point in time, a rancher by the name of Don Antonio Feliz was the landlord of the area that is now known as Griffith Park. A local politician was in the process of drafting Feliz's will before his death from smallpox in the year 1863. The will appeared to be a hoax, as the politician and his attorney were attempting to trick Feliz's family into agreeing to a property transaction. According to the allegations, Feliz's niece pronounced a curse on the politician and his family after she became aware of this information. The events that took place after the tragedy were of great interest, regardless of whether or not the curse was accurate. Later, an unknown assailant was responsible for the killing of the attorney who had been involved in the fraudulent activity involving the property. The subsequent owner of the site had the intention of establishing a cow farm. These intentions, however, were cut short when his cattle quickly became infected with the disease and ultimately passed away as a result of suffering from the illness. In addition to the damage that had already been done, the crops were ruined by both fire and pests. A severe rainstorm swept across the Los Angeles area at the time that Griffith controlled the land, before its transformation into a park, causing significant damage to the area as a result of flooding, including the lighting that brought down a massive tree, for example. Several ranch workers who worked for Griffith reported seeing a dark person cheering and hollering throughout the storm. These ranch hands were employed by Griffith. They believed that the spirit of Feliz was rejoicing on what could have been the downfall of yet another property owner who was attempting to use the land for his advantage. Even though Griffith gave the park to the city of Los Angeles, it is quite likely that the curse would continue to reside in the park. Griffith Park was undergoing improvements and alterations during the Great Depression, and people were available to accomplish these efforts. On this particular day during the project that was sanctioned by the New Deal, a wildfire rushed over the park, resulting in the deaths of more than 30 civilian laborers. After more than 40 years had passed, a couple who were visiting the park were tragically slain when a tree that had fallen on them both crushed them to death. The events described below are just a few examples of the heinous activities that have taken place within the park. Griffith Park may be the site that is worth traveling to, regardless of the time of day or night, even though the park may still be cursed to this day. Final thoughts. One of the many locations within Griffith Park that may be a part of the dark and ominous history that this park may possess is the Old Zoo. This is only one of the many spots available within the park itself. How is it possible for such a well-known tourist attraction to be home to such a myriad of dreadful tales? Even though the curse might still be in effect, you just might be brave enough to go to the park. You have a good chance of escaping harm's way when you are going into every nook and corner of it. However, you should not be surprised if you have some creepy and uneasy feelings for some reason. If you are one of the people who reside in Los Angeles, or if you are planning to visit the city shortly, you will have a difficult time finding another location that has so many stories of the supernatural. Did you like it? Tell us what you think of the video in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting videos.